I just got done doing a broadcast with, kind of look like I'm shiny here. Just did the broadcast with Mike Lindell and Hank Kuhneman on Gene Bailey's, Flashpoint. And he was talking about the case that he's got and where it's going and what he's about to do. And I think it's really an important, update in terms of what's happening. And it seems as though, all hell is broken loose against this man. And we got to keep praying for him. He's one of the few courageous voices that just doesn't care about what comes up against him. And he is going to be, over the next 6 weeks, he's going to be laying out his case on the challenge he's got for the software and the voting machines. And he's insistent that this is going to shake everything up. Now, while that's going on, I've got a copy here of the crazy H.R. 1, which the Democrats have rushed through Congress, want to get the Senate to approve, which is a bill to basically federalize or screw up elections forever. It's just an amazing thing. I know how frustrated you guys are, because those of you that are watching this know that if the elections are going to have ballots, and there's going to be no voter ID, and ballots are going to be part of a permanent landscape, and you're going to be learning how to register minors. I can show you this. This is how thick this is. Just a table of contents of what they want to do. Initiatives which are going to, so felons can all make sure that they can get their voting capacity immediately instated, and how to count provisional ballots, and it just goes on and on. It's just, so you have the voter subject, no one can even talk about it, because they've really closed ranks with all of the media punishing anyone who dares to question the official narrative. And then, of course, it goes all the way to January 6th, who dares to question the insurrection that we have to remember. There was no arm. It wasn't an armed insurrection, because nobody can have arms and weapons in Washington, D.C. And so this situation, but you just see the suppression and the control of the media constantly. But the part that I want to talk to you about now is, while that is taking place, you that have been praying, you that have been seeking God on what the Lord's doing, you don't want to miss how the Lord is answering your prayers, because what's happening is the national battle is one level of warfare, and that's one level of at the highest top part of the pyramid. But below that, you have the regions of the United States. Think of it as spiritual warfare and principalities and territories that are spread out. And that's where this comes in that I want you to take a look at. What is happening now is amazing in these states. You've got Governor Abbott here in Texas, who has made the decision that he's going to be releasing the state of Texas from many of the COVID restrictions. And he's come under tremendous heat, because the pent-up economic desire of Texas, especially after coming out of that lockdown with the freeze and with the pandemic. I just walked through a mall area. Everybody was all masked up, and they're ready to be unleashed. And so he's going to release next week the state of Texas. DeSantis has already said that his state has already been walking in the release. He's like the leader right now in terms of governors in America that are fighting for freedom, and came within 30,000 votes of not even being in office, to a man who actually ended up being found drunk on the floor with drugs in a hotel room. That was the guy who was going to be governor the left wanted. This guy here, Cuomo, who was celebrated and looked to as the next presidential contender, he's under double siege. He's got the sexual allegations on top of COVID data that looks like he was suppressing numbers and only counting nursing home deaths, but it was nursing home and hospital deaths related to his decision-making. It doubled the casualty rate. So he's undergoing the New York and California Newsom. They've already reached, I think, the 1 million vote. Now they're in the 1.5 million vote recall. They're going to push all the way to 2 million. They're not going to stop there. They're going to keep on doing the recall votes. The point is, California and New York are the poster children for the left's policies. Texas and Florida are the poster children for the populist movement. The populace versus the empire, the big government bureaucrats. And what is particularly galling, I'm sure, you're going to see this immediately, is the $1.9 million unnecessary, 1.9 million on top of like $29 million worth of debt. The Democrats, I guess they promised the states that if they won, they were going to just send billions of dollars. I mean, it's 90% of that money, of that 1.9 trillion, is money to go to the leftist agenda of failed, poorly managed states that are Democrat states primarily. They're the bailout money for the fiscal irresponsibility of these states. But a chunk of that 1.9 trillion is going to be going to further funding leftist activity. And with Newsom, it's even more crazy because he just signed up a $6 billion agreement with the unions for the teachers union in California, and they still don't want to go back to work. I don't know what they're doing that's exhausting them. If they need, $6 billion more dollars, they haven't worked in a year, but they don't want to go back now and teach. So what I'm saying is you're seeing an accelerated failure of leftist policies all over the country, but it's regional in nature. And what that means is that the regions are actually, it's almost like I talk about the sheep and the goat. Jesus says he's going to gather them together, and the sheep nations are those that did not persecute his people. The goat nations will be those that did. And as much as you've done to the least of these, my brethren, you've done to me. I think what we're seeing is a type of regional and state unmasking happening. And it's happening lower down on the pyramid of disclosure. But as this continues, you're going to see the rolling evolution of the policies of the left, I believe, backfiring as they're exposed. The question is exposed because you can imagine how difficult it is to get the truth out when you're not allowed to say what the truth is without media backlash or the fear of being deplatformed. I have to tell you about from Mr. Potato Head to Dr. Zeus, how bizarre the left's degree of hypersensitivity is, let alone on these kinds of subjects. So we're in a real battle with the spirit of communism right now, Marxism, totalitarian suppression and control masquerading under the romantic name of socialism. But in fact, socialism and communism, we have to, the clarity is going to start to dawn on people. They both mean the same thing. The loss of your freedom as an individual surrendered to the omnipotent power of an elite who will tell you what to do and when to do it and how to live. And it's the Tower of Babel versus the freedom of the Israelites. So it's Egypt versus Israel, basically, two models. Now, the thing that I want to say is so important is, what does Joe Biden do in this week that is so important? Well, we have already like 70,000. This is during the freezing weather that we have now. You've got this cold, you have 70,000 migrants coming across because basically the left has opened the border up for the floodgates are being opened again because all of Trump's policies that Guatemala and Honduras and Mexico were willing to abide by, that would drop down the illegal immigration activity to like 30-some thousand, and if the wall would be finished, it would be even further dropped down. Now we're up to like 75,000. It'll double to 140,000. But already in the absurdity and the hypocrisy of what we see taking place, the positive COVID rates that are happening in the COVID caravans that are coming up are going to flood into Texas. And so what they're going to be looking for is they're going to look for these COVID numbers to go up. They can't wait to try to get some evidence. And so, if there's a way that you want to pray, you want to pray for the veil to be pulled off the minds and the eyes of Americans to see and understand the magnitude of the mismanagement and the consequence of the choices they're making. Because I think once people connect cause and effect, they're going to realize that this is not what they want. And the attractiveness of the alternative is going to be even more compelling. But I'm telling you, for Joe Biden as president to be pushing down on Texas and Florida for trying to liberate themselves from the oppression of the misuse of science from the federal government to continue to lock down and break up the American people and the economy and our communication, and to see the states flourishing. Florida's data in terms of employment is 50% better than California, 30% better than New York. And So, and that's with the freedom. So, in other words, by opening up the state, they even have less COVID activity than California, which is draconian shutdown in New York. So the point is, we're seeing states beginning to reveal whether they're like the land of Egypt or the land of Goshen. It's a spiritual and political and economic and social manifestation. You're seeing people that are moving from California into Texas and Florida, and we're praying that they don't bring their politics with them. So the caravans coming in, COVID coming in, the fact that these we just had an automobile mash up in California, and it was like 25 or 30 of these illegals packed in to these vehicles that were in these trucks that were coming in. They had an accident. There was like 12 deaths, but it exposed what's going on, because this is the anarchy and the lawlessness of what government policies produces. Now, I know that frustrates you. So what's the response? Well, the response is going to be that, by the way, I'm not making this stuff up. We got the data, because we do these programs. I just did a program today for our firewall on Saturday on Real America's Voice. It's going to be coming out. But I mean, this is all statistics I'm talking about. These are facts. This isn't like made up stuff. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry to say that even though Greg Abbott in Texas and Mississippi, by the way, are soon going to be repealing their statewide mask mandates and lifting lockdown orders, 13 major corporations have already released statements or responded to inquiries that confirm that their mask mandates and coronavirus guidelines are going to resist the states. And so you see there's a new battle going on. Corporations are like governments. Corporations are just like governments. They have their own will. They deplatform, they punish, they cut off business with Mike Lindell. Banks right now, I've got updates on what banks are doing that are freezing the money of people for political reasons they're investigating. But I don't know if you know this, but the reality is, nations and corporations, this is where the globalist agenda is. Corporations are bigger than whole national economies. It's hard to believe, but Walmart generates more revenue than Spain or Australia. Right now, when you overlap the top 100 revenue-generating nation states in the earth, we find corporations have 71 out of 100 of those top spots are occupied by corporations. In other words, 71 out of 100 revenue-generating positions in the world are owned by corporations, have more money than the nations. So we have a new actor in the world, and it's the transnational corporation. They are like global governments. They have that kind of power. That's what Davos and that's all about. It's about where these thrones of great titan businesses are bigger than countries now. And they come to the table and they start working with countries to shape the new world order for their one world government, one world economy. And this is where sovereign nations stand in the way. Sovereign nations means that we don't collapse to the gods of the globalist money belt. We don't bow down to the money class. And this is also part of what you're seeing in this breakup that's taking place right now in America of what works and what doesn't work. What kind of a state do you want to live in? What kind of freedom do you want to have? Where would you rather be? And those that have been exalted, curiously enough, and have been lionized and celebrated are coming down, and those that have been in low estimation are standing up. So what I want you to know tonight, as we're giving you this update, is that you must look to see what's happening in the states, what's happening in the regions, because as you pray for those rulers that are in authority, that you might lead a godly and peaceful life, you're going to see that righteousness actually exalts and blesses a territory. You want to stay engaged in wherever you are the salt of that earth, and you're having an influence. And so it may seem as though we do all or nothing. It's always national or nothing. But the truth of the matter is, as regions and states begin to rise up, there is this moving, pushing back and resistance that is forming in the populist base, in the Christian and pro-life Catholic base. We don't have the structures, so we don't have the platforms where people can hear about it. But it nevertheless is a cumulative effect of all the individuals that are hearing me right now. You need to know that there is a movement that is forming in the United States that is pushing back on the globalist shutdown and the cancel culture, which is really communism light moving towards communism intense. And we're not going to go there. So you guys want to continue to stand with Mike Lindell. Pray for him as he is navigating the crosshairs of he's lost millions of dollars. I think $60 million a year that has been the consequence of what he's paid, and he's doing it as a citizen who is simply challenging, as Donald Trump said, we have to have elections where we have confidence in the outcome. We cannot have elections that are going to be manipulated either by the tabulations machinery that's used, software, or by the flooding of ballots that don't represent actual votes and citizens. And this is going to continue to come to a sharpened point of contrast. And as Americans begin to experience, I'm convinced, the pain of the choices that are made, the more they're going to wake up and start to question, what in the world are we doing? It's going to be a process, but we're already there right now. So let me know where you're watching from. I check all your comments out when I'm off the air, and we've been in here in the studio all day, as you can see. But I'll be checking back, reading your comments, and any questions that you want us to address, anyone you particularly want me to interview, anyone you'd like to hear from, you let me know. I'll bring them on the program, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what happens next. Mario Murillo has 1,000 pastors today in California, one of the largest gatherings. It's a revival movement happening on the West Coast. California is being shaken right now. God's moving. Pastor Cheon is gathering 100 of the leading pastors to form together for revival in California. And I believe that the Billy Graham anointing that was in the 1960s and 50s and 40s that happened in resisting atheism and communism coming to the United States, I believe that that same spirit of evangelism is descending again. And it's going to be, we're the only movement in the world that actually can expand when we're under pressure. And that's what this persecution is doing. It's actually causing us to refine, purify, and relaunch. And that's exactly what's happening. I'll be talking to you guys later, looking at your questions. Share this, will you? Will you share this with other people? And because we do this as just part of our investment back in America and into the church. God bless you. Thanks for joining me on this broadcast. And we could stay connected together. If you subscribe, you're going to be updated on the next broadcast that comes out. And you could like this right here, and we could actually start to create a movement of connected people.